Let's take a look at chain editing within GeoPack Survey. First I'll go to my menu under Geometry, Chains, and then Edit. This brings up our survey dialog box, which may actually start up in a smaller mode like we see here. The idea of this is to allow you to work with a smaller portion of the dialog box to free up screen space if necessary. If I expand this, once to show the point list, and a second time to show the chain points, you'll see this dialog box is actually made up of 3 sections. The top section allows you to work with chains and perform chain edits and global chain operations. The second portion allows you to look at, review, and edit the point list as necessary. The third portion of the dialog box allows you to work with each individual point that makes up the survey chain, as well as add points to the chain list and delete points from the chain list. Additionally, you can work with all of the attributes of the chain points just as you would as if you were using the survey point editor itself. To review this dialog, we'll start with the top section, which is the chain edit portion. Then we'll take a look at the point list area, and then lastly we'll look at the chain point area of the dialog box. To save some screen space, I'll go ahead and collapse the bottom 2 sections and then expand them as we need to cover those functions. The first portion of the chain edit dialog box deals with our global chain operations. There's a pull down next to the chain name, which allows us to select any of the chains that are in the GeoPack database. Next to that, there's a previous chain button, a next chain button, and that just takes us sequentially either forward or backward in the GPK file according to chain name. This gives us a way to select the chain that we'd like to edit by using the chain name. Further to the right of our dialog, there's a select chain icon, which allows me to select that icon, click once to highlight a chain I wish to edit, and then a second time to load that chain information into my dialog box. The other icons are Update Chain, Connect and Merge Chains, Close Chain, Transpose Chain, Create a New Chain, Delete Chain, Fit Chain, and Chain Settings. And we'll take a few moments to look at each one of those. Let's make a minor change to this chain, Swamp 8, and let's give it the description of Tree Line. I'll simply type this information in my description field, hit my Tab key, and then hit my Update Chain icon for that change to take effect and be saved as part of the chain's information. Now let's go ahead and merge this Swamp 8 chain with another tree line. They should have actually been connected in the field, but they weren't. So let's go ahead and fix that here in the office. I'll go ahead and zoom out in MicroStation a step. Go to my Merge Chain icon. I'll click the Merge Chain icon, and you'll see down in the status bar that I'm prompted to identify my first chain to connect, and I'll receive subsequent prompts to accept the chain or reject the chain. Click once to highlight the chain, a second time to accept that chain for merging, and then I'm prompted to identify my second chain to connect. I'll highlight chain Swamp-9 once to highlight, and then a second time to accept. And now those chains will be merged and make one continuous figure in my DGN and in my GPK database. You should also notice that in the Chain Edit dialog box, I have a new icon now. And that icon is Undo Chain Edit, which allows me a one-step reversal of any chain edits that I've just performed. If I click this icon, you'll see that the chains are no longer considered merged. I will go back and re-merge those very quickly. And then once again you'll see the Undo Chain Edit icon. Moving further down the dialog box, there's a Close Chain icon, and what that will do is simply connect the last point in the chain back to the first point in the chain. And that of course will give us a closed figure for that chain. Now let's take a look at the next icon in the dialog box, which is Transpose Chain. To see how that works, let me zoom in on this tree line we have. And you'll see that the direction of the tree line is incorrect, in that the tree line should actually be flipped in direction. The reason for that is that the actual treed area is on this side of the treed line, as opposed to this side. So what we'll do is choose the transpose chain icon, and then we will see that custom line style reflect immediately a new direction for that tree line. The next icon in the dialog box is New Chain, and that will initially build a feature list because I have 3 options from which to build new chains. I can add points manually, by a selection set, or by a feature. To use this dialog, one simply fills in the chain name, a feature, a station, a zone if applicable, what type of DTM attribute the chain will contain, a description if any, and then builds a point list either by typing in the point list area or by adding points using these 3 options of feature, selection set, or manual, or combinations of those choices. We will just keep working with existing chains in the dataset, so I'll go ahead and close this without creating a new chain. Moving along in the Chain Edit dialog box, there's an icon of course for Delete Chain, which will provide me an alert to give me a warning. And then if I were to click yes, it will also ask me if I wish to delete the points associated with that chain. I will select no to keep my swamp-8 chain, and then look at the next icon in the dialog box, which is Fit Chain. That icon will just simply fit the selected survey chain to my current DGN view. Let's take a look at some of the settings available in the Chain Edit dialog box. To do this, I will click on my settings icon, and the first thing I will see is my point locator, size, and symbology, level, color, line style, and line weight. The point marker is just simply this red square and crosshairs, and that indicates the location of the current point that we wish to edit that is part of this chain. Other options are Auto Fit Chain, Auto Center Point, Auto Sync dialog box, which automatically minimizes this dialog when we go back and do a select chain operation, Merge Chains when connecting. The default behavior is to make the last point in the first chain to be the first point in the second chain when choosing to merge. This will just create one single chain. Delete Merge Chains allows us to avoid 2 chains sitting on top of one another when we do the merge chain operation. Prompt for Delete Point gives us a warning if we delete the point from the bottom portion of this Chain Edit dialog box. And then there are direction arrows, flow arrows, and then sort options when creating new chains, either by no sorting option, sort by point name, or sort by nearest point. I'll check on direction arrows and choose some symbology for that, just to briefly demonstrate that functionality. Say OK to that, and then close my chain settings, and I'll go back and click Update to refresh the view for my chain Swamp8, and you will see the direction arrows for the direction the chain was created in. And those arrows will expand and contract dynamically as I zoom in and out on that chain Swamp8. The final portions of this chain section of the Chain Edit dialog are the chain feature, station, the dataset the chain came from, whether that chain has been edited or not, what zone the chain is in, what DTM attribute that chain is assigned, and the description, which we edited earlier to be tree line. Taking a look at the other portions of the Chain Edit dialog box, let's take a look at the point list section, and this is simply a display of the points that make up our chain. We can also edit in here by typing new point numbers, deleting existing point numbers, or even placing a gap by placing 2 commas in between points. In this case between 6297 and 6295. If I click Update to update my chain, then you'll see a gap in between those 2 points, and then I can always click Undo to remove that gap. The last portion of the Chain Edit dialog box allows us to work with the individual points that make up the chain, as well as insert points, insert gaps, and delete points. As we click on individual points in the chain list, we will see our point marker move to those locations where those points are at. In addition, we will see all the point attributes displayed over to the right hand side of the dialog box, such as name, feature, dataset, zone, geometry, attribute, description, and of course northing, easting, and elevation. If we wish to change any of the attributes of those points, we simply change the attributes and then click the Update Point icon, which is to the right-hand section of the point list. The other icons are Select Point, Previous Point, Next Point, Center Point, which centers that point in the middle of my MicroStation screen, Insert Point, Insert Gap, Delete Point, and Sort Points by Setting. If I select more than one point at a time by holding down Control or Shift, you'll see that I have another icon available, and clicking that icon, which is Transpose Point Selection, will switch the point list in my chain and of course the way in which the points are drawn through to create the chain. Let me place this chain back in my original location. I'll just transpose those points back to the original settings. And we'll take a look at one of the last options here in the Chain Edit dialog, and that will be Set by Data Point. First I'll select the point I wish to edit, in this case 6292, and then I will choose Set by Data Point. And this will allow me to move this point, 6292, anywhere I would like along this chain location. And you'll see that the slope and direction of the chain is calculated and interpolated for me. The reason for this is I have checked on my Project Data Point onto Chain option. If I uncheck this option and then choose Set by Data Point, I can move that point 6292 anywhere in the DGN file, and the direction and slope of the chain is not maintained in this case. The elevation is merely carried from the existing point. If we were to have a DTM model in the background of this chain, the elevations would be extracted from that DTM model as we moved the point about the screen.